Hello, I'm Doug Kennedy with Kennedy Training Network. This video is a training tip series following up on the educational conference presentation I did at the Choice Hotels annual conference in May at the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. This session was So You Really Like Working with People. And in this session and in this video tip series, I'll be talking about 5 principles for finding our own personal fulfillment when we deliver hospitality excellence. This series covers the content of my book published at Amazon.com of the same name. So if you're looking for more information on this content, you can visit there. You must look up Douglas Martin Kennedy. There's another Douglas Kennedy author that's a fiction writer. So I'll share with you today stories that I've learned providing customer service for many years, starting from my very first job working for my parents in the Kennedy Craft Shop in Zandale Shopping Center in Lexington, Kentucky. I watched my mom start this business when I was 9 years old, and I started working pretty much the day that store opened. I worked for my parents from age 9 to 20, and I watched them grow this business from this modest little store that you can see here is the very end of the shopping center into what was essentially a pretty successful, albeit a small business. They moved to the front of the shopping center, and they took over the stores next door, and they eventually added 2 additional locations. So I watched my mom use the techniques that I teach today. We called it customer service back then. When I was 20 years old, I started my first job in the hotel business. I wish I had a better story at this phase of my career, but I have to be honest, it was kind of an accident. My parents had sold the craft shop, and I needed a job. Now, back then, we went to this thing called a newspaper. All right, maybe some of you still get newspapers, but you might have noticed the classified ads have shrunk over the years. People started looking for jobs nowadays. Well, originally Craigslist, nowadays Monster, Career Builder, or Indeed websites. But back then we went to the newspaper with our pen and we would circle the jobs. The biggest ad was for a hotel the day I was looking for a job. So it was a Marriott hotel. Here's a picture of me on the left side here in my billman's uniform on one of my first days. I started out working for the Marriott family when they had only 125 hotels. Bill Marriott, J.W. Marriott Sr. was the owner who was still involved at that time in 1981, his last couple of years. And then, of course, Bill Marriott was seen very frequently at his hotels, especially the newer ones like ours. So I watched the Marriott family use the same skills in their family business that my parents had used in the family business called Kennedy Crafts. And I still use those today. Started my first check-in, my first training company in 1989. For 2 years, I ran check-in training. Hopefully you realize how clever that name was. It took me a long time to think that up in 1989. But I started off doing training for front desk, reservations, phone operators, concierge, guest services, largely the same departments I train today. And then I carried the skills through my second company, HSA International, where I was blessed with a lot of success along with my business partner. We grew the company into a worldwide player in the hospitality industry. And I got to train hotels worldwide and to manage a staff of 7 trainers. And finally, the lessons I've learned today, I will share with you today. I also learned in Kennedy Training Network, which I've operated for 10 years now. We're not the biggest anymore, but we are, I call ourselves a boutique training company, just as there's boutique hotels. So again, we'll cover lessons I've learned from Kennedy Crafts, from the Marriotts, from working in hotels, and from training hotels worldwide. And I hope to bring value with those of you that attended my session and also watching the video training tip. So I want to talk first about why hospitality training, I believe, is more important than ever before in the history of the customer service, or certainly in the history of hotels. Every day, the hospitality and guest service levels you provide is part of marketing and public relations. Now, years ago, well, it doesn't seem like many years ago to me, but it hasn't been that long since we all been through classes that we were taught statistics such as this. Be careful, an unhappy guest, they will tell 9 or 10 other people. Now, if you would have attended my sessions for Choice Hotels, my first one was something like 1996, you would have heard me covering this statistic right here. And I would actually sometimes have participants in my workshops back then pull out a pen and paper and calculate how much an average guest would spend during their stay. Then we would multiply that by 10, and that would be a large and scary number. Ooh, be careful. we might lose $1,000 or $2,000 if a guest goes back from their trip and tells their coworkers at the water cooler about the bad things that happened. Today, is it 9 or 10 guests? 9 or 10 others unhappy guest tells? I think we'd add a few zeros to that. It is no longer word of mouth advertising. Today, we have word of click advertising. We have guests today who can be our biggest advocates and apostles to spread the great news on the fantastic service that we offer, or the same guest can become our worst nightmares. Okay, and it depends on what? It depends on you. Those of you who are watching this video training tip, the greet guest every day across the front desk, on the other end of the phone line, on the other side of that guest room door. The interactions you have a hugely important impact on what guests say. Now, if we meet their expectations, it's probably not going to work either way. You know, you don't see a lot of reviews on these websites where people say, you know, I stayed at that hotel and it was okay. They either loved us or they hated us, all right? So we want to encourage them to say great things about us by going above and beyond what's normal and what's expected. If we do so, they will advocate for us on TripAdvisor and on Yelp. We know it's so important to have those good TripAdvisor reviews, not only for the people who research on TripAdvisor, but for those who go to the online travel agencies, the OTAs, to shop around, where those websites such as the OTAs, they draw on the TripAdvisor reviews. We also have social media. People are talking about us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Snapchat every single day. We want the things they say about us to be positive comments that reinforce us. Now, just to give you an idea, this was a TripAdvisor review I did in February. In 7 days, they had sent me they actually send you, when you do a review, TripAdvisor sends you a notice 7 days later. I've got one on pretty much every review I've ever done. They will tell you how many reviews you got. The most recent one I did was 2,516 reviews. Now, if you ask your boss about, you know, how much it costs for online advertising, that is a lot of value, okay? Some of your hotels may use pay-per-click advertising, to where if an individual searches for a hotel, your town, name, and that you would come up with a paid ad. I know in my business that I run, in the hotel training business, for example, the word front desk sales training hotel, if people search for that, my ad comes up, and if someone clicks on my ad, some of my bids run well over $5 per click. Now, we have people, 2,500 people who read about this review, and it didn't cost the hotel anything other than to give an extraordinary service to a guest. And all they really did here, it was a trip I took to Puerto Rico. I have a high school age son. We're trying to encourage him to learn Spanish. He only knows a few words so far. He just started an online course this month. But everywhere we went, they said, oh, where are you from? What brings you in? We said, well, we brought my son here, Adam, to practice his Spanish. Everybody in that hotel started teaching Adam a new word or trying to converse with him. And that one thing made me go back and be motivated to do the reviews. Somebody that travels like 6 trips a month for business, I really don't have a lot of time to do reviews, but I took time in that case because that little thing meant a lot to me. So I'm going to share with you the personal fulfillment principles that we will have that will not only help us get more guests and who will say even better things about us on social media, but also we're going to have a lot more fun if we live by these principles. It's a win-win-win situation. We will have a lot more fun, our guests will have a good experience, and our hotel will be more successful. So I'm going to cover in this video training tip the first of the 5 principles, and in future ones I'll cover the remainder. But first, I have a question for you. Do you really like working with people? All right. If you're new to the hotel business, this question probably sounds familiar because you probably got asked it in your interview. If you've been in the industry a while, you probably have to travel back in your minds to that interview when you sat in that chair interviewing for your first job. Here, I'll take you back in time with some regression therapy. Watch the birdie count backwards from 10. Just kidding. But if you travel back in time to that chair when you interviewed for your job, chances are you got asked, why do you want to work in a hotel? Chances are you probably said, because I love people. I'm a people person. I just love people. Hopefully, these principles I will share with you will remind us of why we do what we do, because we are blessed every day to be in the hospitality industry. Principle number one, hospitality is more than a communications technique. One of the reasons why a lot of hotel training falls short is because it focuses only on hospitality as being a series of robotic communication techniques. Okay, now hospitality and great service requires good communication techniques, but it is far more than that. You can have great communication techniques and deliver zero hospitality in that engagement, all right? So typically our standards for communications are smile, facial expressions, eye contact, using a greeting, and using their name 3 times, all right? So let's see if you think this would be a hospitality greeting. Good afternoon, Mr. Kennedy. Welcome to the hotel, Mr. Kennedy. Great to see you, Mr. Kennedy. How's your trip been? Good, that's good. Okay, I smiled. I used the guest's name 3 times. I asked him how his trip was, right? Well, that was hospitality, right? Technically, yes, but we know it's more than a series of communication techniques. Likewise, hospitality and great service is more than a CRM, meaning a customer relationship management system. This is kind of a generic term for what technology companies give us to manage the relationships with our guests and customers. It is more than an app, all right? Now, you need apps, and Choice Hotels is very good at apps and technology and CRM, and that's all very important. But we got to remember the human aspect in all this. Our hotel industry is at a fork in the road. Some hoteliers are focusing only on technology, and they're forgetting the human engagement. But at the end of the day, the hardest thing to replicate from one brand to the other is the uniquely human engagement and address the uniquely human need to belong and have a sense of validation and to have a sense of being welcomed. An app can't do that. A bot can't do that. A website can't do that. You need all of those things. They're essential for good communication and to stay in the game, but that's not hospitality. We can use technology to engage our guests, but at the end of the day, we need humans. You know, a great example, so many hotel companies have tried to implement the kiosk check-in, but it always seems to fail miserably. I actually trained one hotel brand. I went to, they had just put one of those in every one of their, it's another competing hotel brand. They put one of those systems in every lobby. It was going back about 8 years ago. That fall, I was the keynote speaker for their brand conference, and the corporate office people had to apologize because almost nobody used those machines. Now, we do have some early adopters using the smartphone check-ins, for some people are trying that. But I'll tell you, you know, it's a very rare guest that wants to go straight to that guest room door and open it. And the smart hotels that use those kinds of apps eventually will still have someone there greeting and welcoming them. Because if not, we're just another room to sleep in. And if all you focus is on technology and you take that path, then your hotel will become just another one listed online. But on the other hand, if we focus on the secret sauce of the hotel business, the human engagement, the heart of hospitality, we will always be successful. Otherwise, we are in the space and time business. I want you to think about for a moment of what we actually charge our guests for. We charge them to spend time in our space. We are in the space and time business. Now, you think about it, at the end of their stay, what do they get? Nothing. Okay, actually, at Choice Hotels, you have really nice soap and shampoos. But aside from that, they get the use of our space for time. What they really get is something far more important, which is the experience. Now, we want to give them more RevPAR. I call that revenue per awake hour. Now, you know the term in our industry, RevPAR, revenue per available room, revenue per available room night. So we look at this as a business, from a business perspective, of how much revenue do we get, not of the rooms occupied, that would be daily rate, but average daily rate, but how much we had of all of our rooms, how much revenue per room that was available. Fortunately, our guests are not so cold thinking about us, because if so, they would evaluate their hotel stay based on revenue spent per awake hour, RevPA. Now, I don't know what your rates are, and you might be ranging on depending what brand you are and where you're located. Your room might be $75 a night. Your room might be $375 a night. And sometimes it might be the rate might vary for the same room on different nights. But if you take, let's say a rate of $120 before taxes, let's say an average guest spends maybe 4 hours awake in that room. If you take out the time that they sleep, and you take out the time that they go out to dinner, and you take out the time that they do whatever they came in town to do, maybe 4 hours awake, that's $30 an hour. $120 is $30 an hour. Okay, that's 50 cents a minute. That's almost a penny a second. That's a lot of money, all right? Fortunately, they don't look at it in such a cold-hearted formula like we do with RevPAR. They don't look at RevPAR. But as a provider, we want to realize if we give them more RevPAR, they're going to have a lot more fun. They're going to say good things about us. They're going to talk about us on social media. And the other nice thing is we will have a lot more fun at work as well. So I want you to think about that between now and when the next video tip comes out. But I have another assignment for you. Please spend some time thinking about what is hospitality then. If it's not just the smile and the eye contact and the facial expressions, what is it exactly? What in your mind is the heart of hospitality? And that's where we'll pick it up in the next video training tip in this series. So thank you, and I hope you've enjoyed tip number 1. We'll be back in touch very soon.